Hello everybody, Dark Ninja here. Today I'm going to be doing an atypical video for me. I'm going to be going over a bunch of different Onslaught tips. I've had this style of video and topic requested a lot by people in my community, and so I'm finally going to make a video explaining some more Onslaught tips. Before I begin the video, I just want to show to you where I am on the leaderboard right now. Number 1. Got number 2 last season, so I feel like I'm qualified enough to give you some tips for Onslaught, if just in case you didn't know who I was. Um, so some tips I'm going to cover in this video, at least starting out, are going to be how to plane with light tanks, and where to plane at off spawn, and kind of how to avoid exploding right away at the start of the game, either by going on the spawning thing or just in other various ways. And I'm going to cover a whole bunch of replay analysis on different games I had for my live stream, and just kind of talk about different things, different themes that come up in the games that you should watch out for in your own games if you want to succeed and climb the ladder and get points. So without further ado, let's first talk about light tank planing. So in this first clip here, I'm going to show you how to use the plane with the light tank and explain exactly how I do it, and get the perfect planes off spawn. So here you can see I'm playing my Sheridan. Don't play Sheridan in Onslaught, it's kind of stupid. There's no reason to play it over in RHM. The only reason I'm playing the Sheridan in this example is because I ran out of battle pass point, or I have the maxed out the battle pass points on my RHM Panzer, so I'm just playing the Sheridan instead because it's not that much worse. But an RHM Panzer is pretty much strictly better than the Sheridan, so just use that instead. But yeah, at the start of the battle, immediately after the battle starts, I look up at the sky over the enemy base, like so. There are two different ways to plane, but this is the way that I like to do it. One option that you can do is right after the battle starts, you press your ability button, press and hold control, right click on the map where you want to set your plane, and that will put your plane directly on that spot, and then you just left click and place the plane down. So that's one way to do it. And by the way, to make it easier to press your plane ability at the start of the battle so you can get your plane off quickly, which is very important, I put the ability key on my mouse side button. So if you have a mouse with a side button, it's really helpful to put your ability on one of those keys. And if you don't have a mouse side button, then you can put it on, for example, E or Q or something that's easy to press at the start of the battle. You don't have to be reaching over to 7 or something with your left hand. That would be a pain. So yeah, look in the sky over the enemy spawn, wherever it is. So if their enemy spawn is over here, then I'm looking in the sky way out over here, you know? What this is going to do is my cursor is placed on the sky, basically. And the way it works is wherever you point your cursor, that's where it's going to put the overhead view when you go in your ability mode, in your plane mode. So for example, if I was looking at this factory over here, and then like at the base of this factory, and then I pressed my ability button to open the plane, then my plane would be basically up in the sky looking down above this factory, and in the plane I would be placing it at the base of that factory. So by looking at the sky at the other side of the map, it's going to place my plane when I press my ability button, or not place my plane, but open my plane on the other side of the map, like so. And so that was very quick, what I just did there. It's just because I've got it down into muscle memory, but I'll just let you watch in its entirety. I press the ability button. The plane is right above their spawn roughly. And if it's not exactly above their spawn, like let's say it puts the plane like right here in A3, then what you do is you just quick drag the plane to where you want it in the overhead view, and then you just click. So that's the basic idea of how you plane quickly at the start of the battle. Now, the other thing that I see people mess up is the plane placement. So what I'm going to do is go over every single map and give you a rough idea of where you should be planing. Um, so for Pilsen, let's just quick look at where I place the plane, and this will give you a general idea. So I place the plane right here. So just a little bit off spawn towards the direction that their most of their team is going to be driving. Um, One thing to consider when you're doing your initial plane is whether the enemies are going to be driving downhill or if they're going to be driving uphill. So for example, on mines, if you ever bring a light tank on mines, which I generally don't advise, but there are some cases where I think it could be useful. If you're like mines north spawn, not only will the enemies probably have a lot of CS-63s heading to the hill, which are very fast off spawn, so you have to place the plane further in ahead of their spawn, but also they're kind of heading downhill from the south spawn a little bit, so they travel a bit faster, so you have to place the plane further away from the spawn. But in general, this is roughly the distance you want to be placing the plane off spawn. Just this distance, if you want the maximum number of lights. So now let's quick look at some of the maps, and I'll kind of show you the rough area you want to be planing. And it will take some practice to get the planing down. You can use either method that I talked about. You can try them both and see which one you prefer. So on Cliff, I would plane roughly right here for this spawn right there. For this spawn, I would plane roughly right here. And there's going to be some nuance to this, like you can technically plane like right here if you want to plane mid guys and a couple of the ones going here. But if you want to just be safe, just plane right here and right here, and that will tell you how many tanks are going middle from either side, and then you can infer based on that information how many tanks are going the other way on towards the 1-2 line. On Ansk, I'm not going to talk about it because most people don't bring light on Ansk, and I wouldn't really recommend it. Ghost Town. On Ghost Town, I would probably plane right here, and just like right probably here. That way you catch the heavy tanks heading towards this way into the city, maybe one going this way, and then you also potentially get medium tanks and light tanks that are going wide. Another thing you can do on Ghost Town in particular with the planes is if you're running double light tank on your team, so for example an EBR and a RHM, if you want to specifically light the light tanks that are going to be going towards the east, like the enemy EBR or RHM, then you can plane just straight off to the side here, like right there and right here. And this will ensure that you spot any light tank that's going to the east side of the map most of the time, unless they're dodging the plane. And oftentimes, if they're just sending it straight, you can come to the corner here or come to the corner here and get a free shot into them, and that will give you another plane, which is really important on this map because if you don't have any planes, then they can take the bush line pretty much for free oftentimes, or you're putting your EBR in more danger by doing so. I'm not going to talk about Himmels. Klondike, I always plane for north, usually. The only exception, so like right here, I would say, and right here. The only exception is if I see some of my teammates traveling to the south and I don't want them to suicide. Instead of planing for the north, I'll plane for the south instead. And the reason why I might do that is just so that my teammates explicitly see how many tanks are coming south. Because if my team is just sending like, if I see that my team is just sending like 2 heavy tanks to the south, then I really don't want them to suicide. And they're probably not smart enough if I plane up here and only spot like 2 tanks. They're not going to be smart enough to know that the other 5 tanks are probably coming south and then they'll just die in the south. So instead I'll plane for south, just so that they see that there's 5 tanks coming south and they'll be like, oh wait, I can't actually go here, I gotta back up. So yeah, that's Klondike. You can also hold on to your plane if you don't want to plane at the start and just save your plane for the spotting thing here or here. Although oftentimes they'll try to bait it before they get on it. Another thing on Klondike is From this side in particular, you can sometimes get this spotting thing without getting shot if you're very careful about it. Um, you need to be in a small tank, like an RHM or a thin tank, I guess I should say, and there's a building right on this edge of the spotting thing. And if you angle your tank in such a way, then anybody who is to the north of this line roughly, anything that's up here, will not have a shot on you, and they can only shoot you on the spotting thing from like over here or from the middle. So if you know that their light tank is not going middle, and it looks like they have like a ton of tanks going north and they're not stopping, then you can get on this. Or if they're all going to the south based on your initial plane, then you can maybe get on this. It's kind of risky though. Mine's, like I said, from this spawn, you need to plane a little bit further ahead. I would plane like right here, the top of the pointer, just so that you make sure you get the enemy CS-63s who are coming hill. Those are the tanks you're wanting to spot to see if you can take the hill in a light tank. So Muravanka, it's kind of tricky as to where you should plane. I usually plane like right here to try to catch some of their mediums, and then anybody who's coming to here. You can also save your plane for this thing. I don't think that's bad on Muravanka. And it kind of goes the same for the other side. I put my plane about here. Oyster Bay, I put my plane, so you got to think about where they're going. They're probably going to be driving either up this ramp or towards the mid, so you want to plane like roughly here from this side, and roughly like probably here on the other side. And then any tanks you don't spot are probably going north, so you can kind of figure out which way they're going based on what you spot. Pilsen is a trickier map because there's actually some spires in the middle of the map, some really tall factories or something that kind of block your view. So especially when you're north spawn, when you look up in the sky, instead of looking at the sky, there will be some really tall building like right here. Yeah, it's this building. It has like really tall smokestacks in the sky, and you'll accidentally look at the smokestacks, and then it'll drop your plane here, and then you'll have to drag it all the way down here, which is really difficult. So just be careful of that if you try the looking in the sky strategy on this map. This is the only map where it's really a problem. Safe Haven, probably just playing somewhere here and here. Sand River, I usually plane for north and then come to the middle strike to try to spot some tanks that are coming south if I don't get 4 spots. You need 4 spots at the start of the game to get a second plane. And so that's really what you should be aiming for, is getting 4 spots at the start of the game. That will ensure you have a second plane, for example, for this ridge later on in the battle, which is really important. And if you don't get 4 spots with your initial plane, then you can just try to manually spot a 4th tank. You can try to spot them from mid, for example. It's something I often do, so I probably would plane here, and I would plane about here on Sand River. Siegfried, I just plane here and probably here. Sujianki, very easy, just right here and right here. Tundra, I plane for hill usually, like right here, and right here is simple. They can't go, they're never going to drive this way, so you can plane kind of like out here. You don't have to plane like directly here. You can plane a little bit more here, and you'll still catch everything that's going to be going to the hill. Westfield, it kind of depends whether you want to plane for top side or lower side. I usually would plane for offside, so I'd plane like roughly here, because you're going to be driving to the spotting thing, and roughly here, because you're going to be driving to the spotting thing. So that's all the planes. And I think I'll actually put this in a separate video where I just talk about how to plane in the RHM in Onslaught. And I would say the RHM is pretty much the only viable light tank. Well, it's not the only viable one, but it's the only one that's really worth playing. So yeah, hopefully this was a helpful guide for you to the RHM Panzer and Onslaught and how to make it work. It still might be tricky to play, and will require some practice with the planes, but hopefully now it will make it a little bit easier for you if you decide to try it. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.